Let's see how much money my Steam game made. So those of you that are still around after those numbers have been shown, let us talk more about Merchant 64 and maybe how I marketed the game. So I had this idea about 2 years ago, and what it is it's just a Nintendo 64 inspired game where you travel around buying goods at low prices and selling them at high prices. Very simple concept, heavily inspired by Harvest Moon and the game Dope Wars, if you can believe it. Now, I don't recall where the idea came from specifically, but I believe it was just while I was working on one of my projects, or a project, I sort of got the idea that I felt was easy to code, or easier to code for me, and would be fairly fun. And, you know, it's a number go up style game, and I think those are typically more addicting for the amount of effort you have to put in as like a coder or a designer for them. Like I said, it's a Nintendo 64 era game with a huge emphasis on Harvest Moon. I didn't go with the pre-rendered sprites that the game used for all the animations and the characters, but I did go with like their UI. I kind of just copied it completely. I'm bad at UI and I'm bad at designing it. I felt that this would hit the tone that I wanted, so I just kind of referenced it and used a lot of the elements that it used, just to like speed up my process and to help me learn faster, honestly. So the marketing kind of started early on with the actual idea. I didn't necessarily think of, oh, this would do great in the market, this would do great numbers, but just the core, what it is, I felt would work well, specifically for a Steam audience. So a number go up style game, a simulation style game, a job centric style game, those are fairly popular right now. So I felt, hey, these things are easy to program, a lot easier than action or platforming. I don't have to design a world, I don't have to design an environment. I can just kind of make these systems and they can kind of take themselves further. So that's essentially why I landed on these systems. And I think you could say that is a marketing decision, because I felt this would be a fairly appealing kind of genre to utilize. And then the art is similar. I know firsthand there is a want for these old retro style graphics that people grew up with. I felt if I could make a game that evoked the Nintendo 64 style, I think that would do fairly well to immediately get attention on it and perhaps boost it, you know, further than it would go if it had, you know, like pixel art or realistic graphics. It's just a little more interesting, a little more niche, but it's a strong niche. And then also falling into cozy games or wholesome games. This is an idea that I've had for a while and something that's kind of been aware of, and it's the fact that cozy gamers, wholesome gamers, they're very forgiving with the amount of content and gameplay experiences that are in the game, so long as it looks really nice and it has a good vibe. This is something I think you see a lot of. People have made videos on how gameplay tends to suffer in this genre, so long as it looks good. And I felt that for someone who's not very good at coding and not very great at design, that this could be an easier avenue for me to walk. So it kind of has like these three elements, being a simulation game that tends to do well on Steam, an art style that I think stands out pretty well and is up and coming, and you know, the cozy angle, where that's also like a subgenre that gets a lot of attention. It feels kind of like horror in that sense, where the games can be smaller and less developed mechanically, and they still do fairly well. So to move on to what people would actually consider marketing, being like advertisements and, you know, outreach and stuff like that, what did I do for this project for that? Now, there is one very large hedgehog-shaped object that is looming over all of this, that if you follow me, you are completely aware of. I will hold off on talking about that until after this stuff. It has a role to play 100%. So my predominant advertising stuff was just posting on a few social medias, mostly Twitter, a bit of Blue Sky, a little bit of Reddit, and I posted some of the trailers and stuff on YouTube. I didn't really do shorts and stuff, or small form content, anything like that. I would just maybe put the trailer around. but mostly focusing on Twitter and Blue Sky, because that's essentially where I have the most following and where I feel I can make the sort of content that works on those sites a little bit better than the other sites. The main thing I did was post trailers and just a little bit of gameplay. Sometimes I would ask questions. I feel questions will invite comments and engagement a lot more than other types of content. So that's something that I think I utilized a little bit. But truly, almost all of the attention came from the trailers. So these trailers, I kind of broke the rules of what you should be doing as an indie dev. But it makes sense when you know that I'm mostly on Twitter and making animations on Twitter. Essentially, I just had like a cinematic of the vibe of what the game should be, and then I paste a little bit of gameplay at the end, and then a call to action. Now, when you hear people talk about indie devs and indie dev trailers, especially stuff for Steam or storefronts, the thing you'll hear the most is like, get them seeing gameplay first, because they really don't give a shit about the vibes or what it looks like. So I would say to follow that idea more for your own things, but for this, I was aware that I have an audience that kind of looks more at these animations and stuff, and I made it more based on that. So for the trailer, just some advice. If you really want to make some sort of cinematic trailer, something like I did, where it's a little tone setter kind of animation, I would recommend don't ever fade in with black or white or just like a solid color. You essentially want the first frame to be kind of an interesting screenshot if you can. So if you look at the first frames of these things, I always put the character's face and an emotion. They're doing something, they're looking at something, they're whatever. These are really easy wins if you can have the character doing something, being in frame that's a lot more eye-catching. And I think that was a major thing for my stuff. The trailer got 5,000 wish lists alone. It got me 3,000, and then it trickled down to 5,000, I think. Well, maybe, okay, that's not true. Some of the gameplay, I think, collectively probably got me 1,000. I did some character renders and stuff that got more attention as well. But the trailers did way better than I thought, and did the most. Because after this trailer, the reveal trailer, I had a release date trailer a month later that showed that the release was going to be another month after this trailer. And that also got about 2,000, 3,000 wish lists. It brought me up to the 7,000 wish lists that I was kind of hoping to get. Now, this is something that is specific to me. If you are an online artist, I would say utilize your strengths. This was my strength for sure, just these animations. So I utilized it and it worked well for me. Okay, so this is like a breakdown of what comes from where. And I'm just going to go over it quick with the more important ones. So most of it come from the discovery queue. This is Steam's algorithm. We have 66% coming from there, and most of my visits being from the Steam algorithm. If you look in direct navigation, this is like bookmarks and other links and stuff. So that's pretty high. It's interesting, but it's quite the drop off from the 66%. It goes right down to 6%. That's very interesting. And you have homepage. Again, this is Steam's algorithm, a lot of impressions. Click-through rate's okay, 3,000 visits, pretty good. A lot more bot traffic than I thought. I wasn't aware that Steam had this much bot traffic. But then we get to an interesting thing, external websites. So this would be my marketing push, what I'm posting on whatever. I probably posted on several subreddits, and most come from the subreddits, even though I really wasn't pushing as much as I was on Twitter and Blue Sky, which is next, but it's only 500 visits. Like, that's ludicrously small. I suppose nothing ever did too big. Like, I think the post only got like 2,000 or 1,000 tops likes, but it's pretty low, which is astonishing. I guess they count Google. Maybe that's just Google searching. YouTube is fairly small. I had the trailer with 30,000 views on it, but yeah, only 200. Like, that's crazy. So, and then Blue Sky is really small, and then some of these are SteamDB. So these are, no, never mind. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty small. It's really funny. Yeah, it's almost like it makes you feel bad about it. And then we got wish lists. 2,000 click-through rate's pretty high on the wish list. That's good. Yeah, and then I'll just scroll down here for people that if you want to pause it, you can see, I guess, new on Steam page. Got a lot of impressions, but not a lot of visits from it. So people are just scrolling past it. That's totally fine. Um, and yeah, if you want to look at these, there you go. Very cool. Now some stuff that I didn't do, which I think I got a lot of. Are you crazy? Why would you do that? Was I didn't enter any Next Fest stuff. I didn't enter any of those festivals, and I had no demo. If you at all look at current Steam meta, everyone's always like demo, 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 demo. I have a demo. I thought about releasing it, but when I talked to people that I showed the demo, they said probably don't because this game is short. It's only about 2 to 4 hours long. It's possible I can make a demo later, but the game's small. It's supposed to be cheap. I think we're okay. Another thing, I didn't outreach to people so much. Things like journalists or whatever. I didn't really outreach to them. Any of the articles and stuff that were made were just people on their own making articles about the game or the announcement or whatever. I did not do any like devlogs, although I thought about it. I suppose this is kind of a devlog now, but that's a huge avenue that most people do for their quote unquote marketing. But really, my advice would just be like focus on one or two things and do the best you can there. Another thing, if people are like, where do I start? Where do I begin? I want to point them to Chris Zukowski. This man is by far the best information you can possibly get for Steam releases right now currently. As time moves forward, it's possible his information could alter, get false. I know Steam's really changing things. Next Fest this year was pretty different, that the old information about Next Fest doesn't really line up. So, obviously you got to take everything anyone says about marketing with a grain of salt because no one truly knows. But I would say just go follow this guy. Don't buy courses. Don't, get caught up in some weird, crappy publisher, info. Like truly just listen to all this guy's stuff first. Chris Zukowski, howtomarketyourgame.com. The best information about all this stuff. I didn't specifically follow all of his advice, but there's always kept in mind. Okay, now, huge hedgehog in the room. So I worked on Sonic 3, and I strategically put those videos and those announcements out very close to when I was going to reveal the game. So I hoped it would get some attention that then I could leapfrog off of and showcase my game. I think that worked. I don't think it was 100% of why this worked, but it's probably a fairly high number. 70% plus of why all this stuff has kind of worked out for me is just because I got that attention from a large group of people right before I announced the thing. I don't want to utilize this going forward. It kind of lined up. I was interested to see if it would work, and I think it did quite a bit. So if I get to make another one of these and I don't have the Sonic to piggyback off of, and it totally falls flat, then we know that that did all the legwork, and the game itself wasn't going to do much on its own. Here's just some other stuff that was kind of funny. So one thing I wasn't expecting was the amount of translators reached out. That was by far the most people that reached out, companies, whatever, was translation. Another one was voice actors. There was like a few voice actors that reached out. I know like making devs is a hard hustle, but I think voice acting is like an extra hard hustle because you maybe have to rely on other people a little bit more. So that's tough, but it's like people were reaching out to voice act some of these characters or something, and no, there's no voice acting. And then I did have a few publishers. I had some independent publishers, which is a new thing that is interesting. It's where, people are independent, typically one or two people teams, and they will grab as many of these small indie devs as they can with the promise of essentially marketing stuff. So some of them have online influence, some have connections, but most, I think, just kind of have an email list and the same information that Chris Zukowski has. So I'm skeptical on these independent publishers. I've talked with one of them, and nice dude, but I'm very skeptical on the whole process because typically the info that they were telling me on what they can bring to marketing is kind of just the same information that this Chris Zukowski guy has been saying. And some of the stuff is also some of the stuff that I can just do or have done on my own. The main thing that a lot of these publishers will present to you with is porting. So this is something that I think porting this game to the Switch would be great. So it's in my brain. If it does well, then maybe I can port it. So we'll see what that looks like. But If it's truly difficult, then the idea of having someone being able to port it for you is wonderful. If it's not that bad, then maybe that's a bit of something to look out for, because these guys are popping up now. I think it's not the new grift, but it's something. It's a better way to make money than making games, I think, is the idea.